This is probably the number one business skill set that I've developed the last 20 years is positioning. There's a really good book by Dan Sullivan called The Unique Ability 2.0 Workbook. And I went through it, and it basically said, after spending 20, 30 hours on getting to know myself and my strengths better, that my biggest strength is to craft a position that systematically attracts pre-qualified leads. And that's why we have Family Office Club. That's what this whole section is based on. This is going to be a section that is going to suggest a lot of strategies you're probably not doing. And there's going to be a few of these that you will not want to do, and nobody wants to do them. And that's why they're powerful. So first of all, if you've seen Ghostbusters, this part of the movie, he walks around, he's trying to find the key master. Investors are trying to figure out if they want to allocate to blockchain or venture capital or robotics, who is the expert they're going to trust? Like, are you really like the key master, or are you just someone in the industry? And if you look like just someone in the industry, then you're really dead in the water. So if you position yourself well, you get better engagement, more return phone calls, more text messages back, more deals sourced, et cetera. Remember the slide at the start of the day? If you want to scale your balance sheet, then you want to be able to source deals first, exclusively, and at a better valuation. And if you have really good positioning, you can do that, right? And so I guarantee you that Kyle, as a doctor, run Doctors Investor Club, over time is going to see some deals that no other doctor on planet Earth has gotten to see yet, and they come to Kyle first, right? Like, that is part of the reason to have that community. This is the other reason to have positioning. When most of us were growing up, there were 20 or 30 choices of cereal. Now there's like 800 choices of cereal. And they have, local, grass-fed, organic, gluten-free, kosher Frosted Flakes, right? They're trying to hit every demographic between the eyes with some version of slightly less toxic Cancer Crunch cereal, right? So over time, this is what happens in every industry. It gets more mature, more specialized, more competitive. So you need to focus more on positioning than you used to. You have to be more unique than you used to. Even if you're Kellogg's, you have to come out with all these different SKUs to attract all these different people, because now some local company came out with something that's attracting a percentage of their client base. David Ogilvy is not known by most people, but he was named by Time Magazine one of the top 100 most influential people of all the 1900s. And by age 35, he had one of the largest advertising marketing agencies on Fifth Avenue. Mad Men is based off of him. The main character is based off of his personality. And basically, he did it by studying everything in his industry, knowing it cold, and he'd go in and he would pitch like a American Airlines type account or a Campbell Soup account. And he would pitch it by saying, here's what everyone else is going to say. This is what I do that's different with direct response. This is why it's better, and you can actually measure the results. So hire me, and you're going to make a lot more money than going with what everyone else is saying. And it's because he was so over-specialized that people are like, okay, that makes sense. And the other people didn't know what was going on until he took over like half of the accounts on Fifth Avenue and became like the number one person in advertising at a really young age. So it was specialization and direct response and what all of his competitors were doing. So he was different in a way that matters, like Ken Wilber says you need to do. So I found out on accident, I was raising capital in Boston for separate managed account hedge fund products. And I would call through the Green Standard & Poor's book of institutional investors. No one wanted to take my call because they had 30, 40 million in assets. They all said, call back when you get to 100. And I literally called like 400 different people in that book. I then said, okay, let me go after wealth advisors. So I called wealth advisors. A lot of them said, oh, well, we just work with high net worth. They're not all accredited, so we don't really show hedge funds to our clients. So I said, okay, that's not good. And as I kept on calling, I ran into one who said, well, we run a multifamily office, so of course our clients are accredited. They're all 5, 10 million plus, 20 million plus net worth. And I said, oh, family office, never heard that word. What does that mean? And he told me. So I said, oh, okay, wrote down a note. It's like, I need to study family offices. Then all my capital raising success will come. And then I looked online. Okay, family offices, what are they? How do I find them? Where are they? Is there a list of them? Is there a community of them? And what I found is the only people that were being helpful to me at all were some journalists from Bloomberg and Financial Times that had never worked a day in their life in the industry that had written a couple articles. And I was like, oh, that's weird. Well, whatever I can find or learn in the little corners of the internet, I'll just share in my blog. It's called Hedge Fund Blogger at the time. And I'll share my free blog from Blogspot. It's like a Google service. And I'll just write a post a week on what I'm learning about family offices. I try to call on them every week, and that'll teach me selfishly. It'll just make me better at calling on family offices. So as I did that, we started talking about hedge funds, capital raising, family offices. The blog started taking off. I got 100 hits, 500 hits, 1,000 hits a day on the blog. So I was like, oh, maybe I should write like 2 posts a week. And then people would start calling into the office at the capital raising firm where I'd gotten hired. And the guy running it was 30 years my senior. And I got on the front page of the Boston Globe at age 26, and they didn't want to interview him. They wanted to interview me. And I just got into the industry. He's like, why are all these people calling? He's like, and I told him about the blog. He's like, oh, well, we're FINRA regulated. You probably need to delete that thing. And I didn't want to because it was taking off. So I started writing. At that point, then it came to a point where he's like, I think you should just delete that blog or quit the job. And I was like, all right, I quit. And before I could get hired somewhere else, the website took off and I was making more than what he was paying me before. And then it became Family Office Club. And so early on in that process, I got invited to speak at the European Business Summit. I was 26 years old, had never been to Europe in my life, and they flew me to Belgium. My wife and I both went. And there was 2 prime ministers on stage at the same event. And I couldn't even eat. And they just had me on some hedge fund discussion panel because they saw I'd written 500 blog posts on these 3 topics of raising capital at hedge funds and family offices. So I'm sure when I walked in, they wondered who brought their kid or their intern to the event. And I was like, why am I even here? And then it's just because of the positioning. And then I went to the Game Monaco event soon after. And at that event, everyone came up to my wife and me and said, oh, you're the hedge fund blogger guy. You're a hedge fund blogger guy. And I just thought to myself, like, oh, that seems like a stupid thing I just did there. I made myself a hedge fund blogger guy. It sounds like you're like Mr. Journalist guy. And I was like, I don't want that. So then I realized you can come up with any position you want to. That's why they say authority is taken, not given. No one came to me and said, hey, Richard, if you want to, you now have enough experience to position yourself as a family office thought leader. I just did it at a very young age and didn't care what people thought about it. I don't know really why. People often comment like, oh, wow, that was bold of you to do. But honestly, it was just the hunger of something that would work after having businesses that don't work. And so then I gave myself the position of head of a family office network. And so whatever position you want to give yourself, I wouldn't look to anyone else to give you approval or care what they think. I wouldn't do anything unethical or that's not honest. I was just sharing the journey as I went. I wasn't saying I'm the biggest expert on planet Earth at age 26 on family offices. I was just saying this is what I've learned recently. So I'd keep all that in mind. If you do what average people do, like, Goggins weighed 300 pounds and was eating a bag of chips and saw Navy SEALs on TV. And he was like, oh, maybe I need to become a Navy SEAL. And he went into the office and they laughed him out. They're like, you will never, ever be a Navy SEAL. Get out of here. He'd have to lose 90 pounds to even apply. And he did it, became a Navy SEAL, sold 9 million books, and is worth tens of millions of dollars now by not being average, trying to be the opposite of average in what he did. So this is the cereal aisle. This is if you're in multifamily, long short hedge funds, private equity, crypto fund, or AI company. That probably labeled a third of you in here already with one of those. There are 82,000 AI companies now, right? 5 years ago, I don't know how many there were, probably less than 10,000. This is what people see. If you say, oh, we run an AI company, this is what they're seeing. Instead, you don't know who here is the tallest, the shortest, the smartest, the oldest, the youngest. If you draw a circle in the sand and you say, this is what we're focused on, we only invest in multifamily, only in Kansas City. They probably don't know a single other person they've ever met in their life that only does multifamily in Kansas City, right? It's like now they have a grasp on what you do and how it's unique, at least in your focus, in your geography. And if you look at the sandbox, you could guess maybe who's the oldest, who's the youngest, et cetera. So you want to tightly define your sandbox and identify a keyword phrase you're going to own. So this is one of the top 10 most valuable slides of the day. If you decide that you want to own, like for example, RSM is respected for like their outsourced CFO capabilities. So an example of a firm like RSM would be outsourced family office CFO, like that term. So when people think about that term, they think about RSM, right? And so one of ours that we went after is how to start a family office. So I wrote a book with a really creative name, How to Start a Family Office. And I went on 100 different podcasts and put out videos and did interviews and wrote articles and blog posts and all of that on how to start a family office. I built tools for it, infographics, etc. And so the real key for this, which is going to be really important for the next few slides here, is that it has to be so valuable that if you ever became the number one expert of that sandbox, or even a top 3, it would change your life, it would change your business, and everything would grow enormously. Because then it's something worthwhile. And no matter how long it takes and how much work it takes, if you could ever get there, it would be amazing. That was what made Family Office Club what it is today. Because there's a weird thing that happens when you do things that no one in their right mind would do, unless you're planning to stick around for a while. Then people see consistency and commitment in that, and they say, oh, okay, well, this person must know something if they've interviewed all these family offices or put on 300 events or wrote 13 books, et cetera, because you don't make money off writing a book, really. You just build relationships and add good karma to the industry. And so this is really important to figure out, like, what is your keyword phrase? So I would write that down on your piece of paper if you already know it, or a homework assignment to yourself if you don't. If you don't have this and it's not amazingly valuable, you're not going to want to do anything to capture the valuable position. And a good example of that is the billionaires.com. If we can make that the number one website, not tracking the wealth of billionaires, but documenting the business models, the mental models, the strategies, their stories, how they got to win in the game of capitalism, and we can be number one or top 10 in the world of billionaire best practices, then I think that'll be life-changing. So that's the type of thing that we try to look for. This is related to the question about where to focus on real estate development. If you think about what you're naturally good at, your DNA, what can make you money, and what you're passionate about, like, I like playing pickup basketball, but I'm not 6'7", so like, do I have the DNA to like play in the NBA? I mean, like, there are some people out there, that were shorter and did well, but this is not helping me, right? And so if you have passion and you're naturally good at it, doesn't make you money, you'll never be able to scale it, right? You have to have a model that actually makes money. And if you're not passionate, you'll be like everyone else who sits around me in first class, just streaming something or sleeping and not working at all. And they will get work done and answer that email and get back to the client and get the proposal to them the same day, while you take 10 days to do it, because they're passionate and you're not. So you have to have passion, has to be profitable, leverages your DNA, your natural strengths and experience. And this is a Jim Collins hedgehog strategy approach. And then I add these 3 when I look at opportunities. What's the biggest strength I have? Where's the most future demand? And where's the least competition? Because you can follow all these 3 things, but if you're entering a market with like 1,000 competitors, like don't even start that. That's like the worst positioning possible, right? If you say, oh yeah, we do value add multifamily. Oh yeah, we're long short hedge fund. Oh yeah, we're an AI company, right? It literally means nothing. You might as well just not say anything, right? And so you really need to say something that stands out, but is based on all these criteria. And if you have 5 opportunities in front of you, maybe focus on just one that leverages these items right here. And Vern Harnish, who's one of the founders of EO, pointed out that at one point, Apple had only 7% market share, but 51% of all the profits in the industry. And I think the numbers have gotten more extreme over time. And so the point is, like, you don't need to do 6 different things. What is the thing which makes you the most money, is the most exciting, there's the least competition, the most profits, you have the most fun working on those types of projects or with those types of clients, and just position yourself really well for that really strong position that leverages that Jim Collins slide I showed, but is a niche. Because Brian Tracy was one of my mentors, and he said, if you have a person at ESPN with a $150,000 camera with a huge lens on it, you can take better pictures than them with a disposable 7-Eleven camera if the ESPN guy is not allowed to focus. And so as a smaller, more agile firm, you can focus. A big gorilla, the company 3M, can't focus on space nanoparticles and be known for that. Will people think of them? Sure, that's their advantage, right? But they're never going to be thought of first as like the super provider of brand new. Like, they're the ones that acquire something after it's already gotten the contracts with SpaceX and other people, right? So like, I think that being known and being top of mind for a very niche thing is very hard for a very large company to do. They can't focus like you can. So if you have a migraine, you don't walk in and you just don't want like a supplement or just a normal. You might want a normal medicine. You might want Excedrin, right? If you have arthritis pain in your knee, you might want arthritisin, because it's medicine built for actually your knee. You don't want just nanoparticles. You want space age nanoparticles that are niche focused, right? There's a family office in New York that doesn't just say we work with people in New York as a family office. Many people do that. They only serve German families in New York. They are German. They go to German religious events. They go to German like food expo things. They hang out with other German families. They know what banks to use that do business in Germany and at home for when people go back and forth in case they have holdings over there. They know the tax treaty in Germany between the US. How many US-based family offices know the German-US tax treaty cold on how tax treatments are done? Like maybe no other family office in America. So if you're German and you're wealthy and you live in New York, then you hear about this group. Why would you not meet with them, right? So it's like a doctor who's only worked with hockey NHL players and only when they tear their Achilles. It's like, okay, I should probably talk to that guy if I'm an NHL player and I tore my Achilles, right? So that's how simple this idea is. Like you have to hit someone between the eyes and be number one in someone's mind. So be number one in something for a very specific someone, meaning demographic. That's really important. So if you know your sandbox and it's a niche within a niche, but it's not so niche that there's no customers for you, you're not so far ahead of your time that you can't do business, and figure out that has to be very closely connected with who are you trying to attract, because that might change what your sandbox is, right? If you're trying to attract females in real estate in Texas, that's very different than people that want to figure out what nanoparticle materials to use, et cetera. So maybe go a niche more than you currently are if you're not getting enough momentum. I keep on finding that people who are not getting enough momentum sometimes are chasing 7 things instead of one big thing, or they have 5 things going on, 3 aren't going well at all, and 2 are going pretty well, but maybe 80% of their energy should be in one, 20% in the other one, and leave the others until next year. So like right now, we are developing decamillionaires.com because it means 10 million plus net worth. And there are over 1 million decamillionaires in the United States. People don't use the word a ton, but people didn't use family offices a lot either when I first got started. But we already have centimillionaires.com developed. Billionaires.com is in progress, and we're doing the interviews. I also own sovereignwealthfunds.com, and I want to develop positioning on that. It'd be highly valuable too. They make billionaires, look like nothing with the checks they could write, right? But I'm not distracting myself yet with sovereignwealthfunds.com. I'm getting decamillionaires.com rolled out, make more progress on billionaires.com. Giving birth to twins is a lot harder, bringing up 2 kids at once at the exact same age than having 1 kid at a time, right? So I just want to make sure my energy is focused and to get things to grow legs and be walking, crawling, running, and then bring on another project.
Join the Family Office Club by visiting familyoffices.com. We look forward to seeing you at our next live event.
If you are a founder, raising capital, developing real estate, or you're an investor, would love for you to get involved in the Family Office Club. I've run this community for 18 years now. We've hosted 300 live events. We have 17 million social media group members and followers. We have the #1 YouTube channel on family offices. We have the #1 most popular podcast on family offices. You can learn more about us and our membership options at familyoffices.com. We have 30 in-person events planned in 2026 and another dozen events this year. Please go to familyoffices.com to learn more.